So, in this video, I'm going to talk to you all about a serious question that I feel is not really being answered, and this is something that was sort of answered back in New York from Pinepowerli's video where he talked about his news station up in New York, how they cover too much about Trump all the time. Well, down here in Delmarva, I feel that the media, in particular, our main news station, WBOC, they talk about him way too much. Way too much. And this is an issue that I have a problem with. Because we literally had two big news stories here in the Delmarva that are going to be affecting our region. We have a special primary tomorrow here in Maryland, right? We have the Democrats trying to see who their opponent's going to be taking on Larry Hogan later on in the fall, right? We also have, of course, actually a race that I'm actually keeping an eye on here in Worcester County. We have a state attorney up for grabs. We actually have a conservative woman who is who's trying to seek the Republican nomination tomorrow. She's actually a grassroots Ronald Reagan conservative activist who's running for state attorney tomorrow. We also have a couple state senate races here in Maryland that people don't want to talk about. And something really got messed up. Nobody even talked about this. That a Salisbury man was charged with attempted murder. Right? They didn't even talk about this on the news today. They don't want to talk about how the crime is actually going up in Salisbury. The media is hiding it. And yet, we don't even know if the home burglary rates from 2 years ago here in Ocean City have gone up. Because 2 years ago, we used to have a very big problem with tourists not securing their locks at night and home burglaries happening 2 years ago. I don't even know if it's still happening now because, again, the media doesn't want to talk about it. They're too fascinated with Trump. That's right, they're too fascinated with that guy. That guy in Washington, which honestly doesn't even affect our region. And then I watched the news today. Okay, we know about that whole big deal about the voter registration error in Maryland, all right? We know about that. We know yesterday that we had an issue with, I think, I'm trying to play the video back on my thing. If I can, I apologize. But we had a voter registration error because people tried renewing their driver's license and changing their parties. That was sort of reported on. But the big story that I wanted to know first was, of course, Delaware State Legislator. Delaware State Legislator is actually ending its session this week, and we still don't even know about the tax breaks for the Dover Downs. We don't know if the Delaware Legislator is going to go through with it. See, they don't want to talk about it that much because, again, overall, the media has ADHD. So I'll quickly mention it. If you don't know what's going on in Delaware, and I think this is also going to impact people in Maryland who honestly want the choice of not going to the Ocean Downs in Berlin. So basically the story is they're hoping that the lawmakers in Dover will pass gaming tax cuts in the final days of the legislative session. The proposal that was passed in the Delaware Senate would cost the state $15 million in revenue in the upcoming 2019 fiscal year. The amendment would reduce the state's overall loss by roughly half. Was introduced in the House complicating the potential passage of the legislation. So basically, what I'm trying to say here is that we have a big situation in Delaware that the casinos might be getting a tax break. Right? And yet, every 4 years, we're supposed to care about local elected officials. Okay? Governor, sheriff, state attorney general. See, again, this is what I don't understand. They have to talk about, yet again, the President of the United States. Which, I get that Delmarva is a conservative area. I get that Worcester, Wilcomico, and Sussex overwhelmingly voted for Trump in the 2016 election. But you mean to tell me that I can't get any information about a man in Salisbury who was charged with attempted murder by using an axe? That's our media today. That's our media today. So, before I wrap up this video, before I start yelling, I actually want to give you all the actual news on the crime actually going up in Salisbury, Maryland. So the computer will be willing to cooperate, because thankfully I am using Audacity to record this. Right, so the article goes, a Salisbury man was charged with attempted murder and related charges after using an axe to damage a car his ex-girlfriend and 2 other people were riding in, Wicomico Sheriff's Office said. They reported that the incident happened shortly after 9 o'clock last night in the area of Moss Hill Lane and Lexington Street in Salisbury. 3 people were traveling on Moss Hill Lane when 18-year-old Stephen T. Opel rode up in another vehicle and shouted that he was trying to find his estranged girlfriend. Investigators say Opel's ex-girlfriend was one of the passengers in the car, and she obtained a protective order which barred him from contacting her. The sheriff's office said Opel intentionally struck the car and 3 people were riding it, which forced him to stop it. It was at this point that Opel approached the car while brandishing an axe, according to investigators. They say Opel then attempted to pull his former girlfriend from the car from her throat. Investigators also said that he was unable to remove her from the car. Opel then began repeatedly striking at the car with an axe, with one of the strikes, I'll say strikes, this is a typo, shattering the rear window. Opel then reportedly attempted again to enter the car before running away. So basically, again, this is what I don't get. Why aren't they talking about these stories? And then we also have another story. A woman was found dead at a campground in Dover. See what I mean? The local news really isn't local anymore. Then I watched a story about how children are riding their bikes in New York. Who cares? Okay, we should at least know the weather's going to get humid later this week. But then they talk about stupid social media trends. How does this impact the Delmarva? It doesn't affect our quality of life. I honestly think, and this is just my opinion, and this is the way I feel about WBOC overall in general, right? They used to be local many years ago, right? They would actually talk about the crime going up in Salisbury. It's still going up. People don't want to talk about it because they're just too afraid to, I feel. Now, who is this Draper Holdings Business Trust? I'll end the video on that point. So, basically, they are a trust company in Milton. Now, I have a bad feeling, and this is just my opinion, that I think they have a personal vendetta against Donald Trump. And again, I don't really want to talk about Mr. President that much, but you all get the point. You all get the point. Then again, I understand the WBOC studio is on North Salisbury Boulevard. I get that whole thing. But talk about the local news. This is what Pinepowerli was talking about with News 12 back in New York. And now it's spreading down here to Maryland as well. This is why I have to keep showing you this picture of the WBOC logo. Because I am sick and tired of them holding the news away from us. In order to find these stories, we have to go on the WBOC website just to get this information. And yet, the clowns, I'm sorry for calling them clowns. I think they really are clowns because they have a personal vendetta against real news. And this is the way the media reacts these days. I'm just plain sick and tired of it. And I completely agree with Pinepowerli. The FCC should be regulating the newscast. It should be strictly local news. If you want to talk about the president, don't lead off the 12 o'clock news about President Trump's vendetta against illegal immigrants, all right? Nobody in Delmarva cares about that. No one. And at least when there's hot weather, especially how we're going to have a stretch of 90-plus degree days starting on Friday, that's what people in Delmarva want to know about. See, in New York, we care about it because it rarely happens. I guess people down here are so used to it, they actually want to know about Trump, maybe. I don't know. So, that's it. That might have answered the question, again, is the local news local? Honestly, it's not. And I'm going to say this again. If the Federal Communications Commission actually had any common sense, they would start regulating these broadcasts and tell the production teams, make sure you put enough local news and only mention Trump about maybe 30 seconds. Don't give Trump 2 or 3 minutes of airtime on a local TV station. So that's it. Thank you for watching.